Welcome back to Film Brew, an in-depth conversation about our favorite Hollywood movies and TV shows from a filmmaker's perspective. I'm your host, Kevin Lyons.
I am Daniel de Sangre, and we are Too High Mcfly.
There's nothing like the first sip of beer of the day.
Seriously.
That we had a couple of hours ago.
That's exactly. Now it's about the 15th, but that's all right.
All right. Anyway, you guys, this week we're talking about The Magnificent Seven, directed by Anton Fuqua. Just came out this week, starring Chris Pratt, Denzel Washington,
Ethan Hawke,
Vincent DOnofrio.
Oh
Who else?
yes.
Young Hun Lee,
Peter Sarsgaard.
Peter Sarsgaard.
Peter Sarsgaard is awesome.
I think he was born to be a villain.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
A weird villain in every movie he ever does.
So let's give a little bit. So Anton Fuqua, of course, is the guy that did Training Day and Equalizer.
Yes.
Really solid.
And this was based off of The Magnificent Seven
with Steve McQueen
in the 1960s, which was also based off of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Did I say his name right? Kurosawa. Akira Kurosawa. Say that. Say that when you're drinking.
Do you like sauerkraut?
I love Sour Patch Kids. But anyway, we're talking about The Magnificent Seven, bringing back the westerns, because the westerns were really big in like the 60s and stuff like that. Every movie was like a western.
Spaghetti westerns.
And then they made the way of the western. They just stopped making westerns, and finally we get a new western. And I had a lot of high hopes about this. What about you, Dan?
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the huge cast that they had, it made sense that it was going to be awesome, especially directed by Fuqua.
And starring Denzel Washington.
Starring Denzel with Ethan Hawke reunited for an Anton Fuqua movie.
Denzel Washington has been in like so many different genres. They have to start creating new genres for Denzel Washington.
And even his mustache had its own, like, its own billing. Like, that mustache was badass. It connected to his mutton chops.
His mutton chops. And those are some tight fucking mutton chops, Denzel. Yeah. Right there. Woo! So anyway, it was really great to see a new western, also starring Denzel Washington, which I thought was a genius idea. Dan, how did you feel about the movie?
Overall, I really liked the movie. Coming into it, I didn't know if it was going to be more like lighthearted comedy or if it was going to be a little more gory, considering that he did do Training Day. But then he also did, Equalizer, which was a little more lighthearted action. So I wasn't quite sure what this was going to be, but the first 2 minutes into the movie, you knew right away what it was going to be.
I have never seen Training Day or Equalizer.
You've never seen Training Day?
I've never seen Training Day or Equalizer. I'm sorry, I wasn't like demanding not to see these movies. It's just like it's like those movies that are popular but you've just never seen for some reason. It just got by you, never seen them. And actually, after seeing this movie, I'm probably gonna go and watch those movies this weekend.
So when somebody says King Kong ain't got shit on me, you have no idea what they're talking about.
I know that it's from Denzel, just because everybody says it exactly like Denzel Washington.
And he improv did,
yes,
too. That was awesome.
So I'm excited to go watch those movies. Cool. But anyway, so you walked out of the movie theater feeling?
So walked out of the movie theater feeling I really liked the movie. On a story standpoint, there's some problems with the movie. Okay, just if you're looking at it from a script point of view. The acting was phenomenal in it, though. I really, really loved the acting. I thought they carried the movie. Antoine had some cool shots that were in it. Especially when you had the scene with Denzel kind of hanging on the side of the horse and he's there firing towards the end of the movie, third act. I forgot to mention, spoiler alert, by the way.
Spoiler alert!
He's riding on the side of the horse and there was a cool badass shot that Antoine had where, Denzel's like they're firing off and killing a bunch of dudes. And another one where he goes to like the inside of a building and he bangs through the wall. I'm like, that's Denzel Washington. That was awesome. That was cool. But if you're looking at just from a story standpoint, from a script standpoint, because at the end of the day, what are we? We're filmmakers looking at it from a filmmaker standpoint, right? Okay. So let's take the fanboy out of the equation. There were some story issues that was wrong with the script writing. So I did notice that, but
yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit when we break down.
How did you feel?
It was a lot of fun. This movie, they took a western and they put there was a decent amount of comedy in it. And it wasn't too over-the-top comedy. There were some people I saw that were kind of like criticizing the style of comedy, saying it was a little too modern, but I don't think so.
No, I mean, I could see what their gripe is because Pratt did have a few little jokes in there that felt a little modern, but it really didn't bother me because let's not lose sight of the fact that this is made in 2016.
Yes, but what he was saying and his jokes, it wasn't vocabulary that wasn't used back then. And I mean, are you from the fucking 1800s? You don't know what their humor was like. They could have humor just like us, just wasn't recorded that well. Exactly. But it was really funny.
What's a syllable?
Yeah, it's a syllable.
What's a syllable?
He said the joke with a different inflection of his voice that is only from 2016. So fuck you.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I thought it was really funny. Even though the style of comedy did feel like it fit in perfectly with 2016, but it didn't take me out of the timepiece. I thought it was really cool.
So, as an honor of Western and them drinking a lot of whiskey, we're gonna go ahead and drink our own little bit of whiskey here.
Every scene, somebody was drinking whiskey, and the whole time I'm just like, "Where's my whiskey? I want to drink with these guys and smoke cigars." Go ahead, take a little swig. Woo! I got us some chewing tobacco like real cowboys.
Woo! Why am I getting more excited? The fact that it is Big League Chew.
It's Big League Chew.
The other stuff.
We're chewing and brewing.
This is not a distraction at all.
You gotta pack it into your cheek like a real cowboy. Let's talk about the characters. Let's start right at the top. Denzel Washington. How'd you feel?
Oh, Denzel Washington. I always loved Denzel Washington.
He's great.
He's awesome. And the thing about what they did with this movie is they kind of teased about his background, but they never really outwardly said it until the very end of the movie. I could see if some people had a problem with that because it's like, hey, I kind of want to know about my character while I'm watching him. I particularly didn't really have a big case about that. There's little moments that they could have kind of hinted a little bit about it when they first mentioned Peter Sarsgaard's character, Bartholomew Bogue. When he first heard it, there could have been a little bit of like kind of like looks in the sunset or something where there's some kind of facial recognition. The only thing he says is, "Oh, are you talking about Bartholomew Bogue?" Yeah. Oh, I've heard of him. There didn't seem to be any like hatred behind his eyes. It would have been a little cooler if you just saw a hint of that, so that the audience knew there was some kind of hatred there.
A little bit, because think about it like this. Denzel's playing a cowboy. Cowboys don't really communicate their feelings well with other people. They keep everything inside, and I thought Denzel Washington did really great in that.
True.
Denzel Washington doesn't need to act. He doesn't even say anything. He just has to look at you with his eyes, and you know what that motherfucker's gonna say. And everybody is, okay, we'll go along with you, Denzel. They didn't have to go into all this dialogue about his backstory. And that's what I loved about this movie, is like, and at the same time, it's a little bit of its faults, is that it lacked in some parts of the story, but it made up in character moments.
Oh, absolutely.
And imagery and everything like that. Because it's a shooter. It's a shoot 'em up. It is an old Western shoot 'em up. And the action scenes in this were great, but we're talking about characters. Denzel Washington, I thought that he did really great as this character because he was a cowboy. He didn't have to show that much.
Yes. And how cool was it at the end when he takes off the scarf and he's got the scars around his throat?
Like he was hanged by the... Yeah, that was really good, man.
It. But the only thing I will say about that, I know we're going to get into it later, but I felt like Denzel's character was robbed of his revenge. You know what I mean? He was there choking him. He was about to kill him. The guy about to pull the gun when, you know, our Emma Cullen or Haley Bennett shoots him and then kills him, and it kind of robbed Denzel of that death.
Because it's very deceiving because of Magnificent Seven. You think that Denzel Washington is the main character. But this is what I just thought of today. He's not the main character. That girl, Emma, what's her name?
Haley Bennett plays Emma Cullen.
Emma Cullen. This is her revenge story. Because it opens up on this little old Western town. Her husband was killed in the first scene by Peter Sarsgaard, and she goes looking for revenge. So the movie opens up with her seeking revenge, and that's where she gets Denzel Washington. And then it ends with her killing Peter Sarsgaard. So it's misleading. You feel like Denzel Washington is the main character, and he's the one seeking revenge, but it's actually this girl.
And she's not technically part of the Magnificent Seven.
No, but she's the one who ends up killing him. She hires all these fucking bad guys who we haven't talked about. Not bad guys. All these cowboys that we haven't even talked about yet.
Yes.
And she's the one who ends up killing him.
The badass. Right?
That was really cool. I like that a lot.
So that's interesting.
So let's get on to the other characters.
Chris Pratt.
We got Chris Pratt
who plays
playing
Josh Faraday, the gambler, right?
The gambler
awesome was he? He was good.
/ magician.
Magician.
And that's where not all the comedy, but the most of the comedy came from in this movie was Chris Pratt.
Yes.
And I thought he was great. I loved seeing him as a cowboy.
Yeah, I felt like he played it really well. Like he felt really natural in the Western world.
Yeah.
You know, he had a little charm.
and with his own comedy sense. Because
Oh, yeah.
in Jurassic World, when he was in Jurassic World, it felt like he was holding back a lot because he was trying to play like the serious hero guy.
Yeah.
But in this, it feels like he was able to settle into his own skin a little bit and be a little bit more natural in his performance, and especially with his comedic performance, which I thought was great.
Oh yeah. He did an outstanding job. I felt like you could tell that the movie kind of tailored towards a lot of Chris Pratt shots, meaning like, he stares, like a lot of like Chris Pratt looks where he's looking out in the distance and he's staring at Denzel and the camera focuses on his face. Like, they did a lot of those, which is okay. I'm okay with that, but they clearly gave him a lot of attention, but he still delivered and he did really well.
Yeah.
So it's not a major complaint, it's just an observation.
And with a lot of the other actors who would play the Magnificent Seven, the only one I felt like was focused on more was Denzel Washington because he was the leader, but I felt like they all shared equal moments in the film of having their own character moments and really cool parts.
Yeah,
I thought they blended way better than the characters in like Suicide Squad.
Oh, yes.
How they were all just happened to be banded together.
Which actually is they kind of pulled off what the first Avengers did, right? Because first Avengers, Josh Whedon did the same thing. He had very good character moments.
Yes, for each one.
And they did that here with, Magnificent Seven, which was great. Next character, Ethan Hawke as Good Night.
I liked him.
Yes.
But this also has to do with some of my faults in the script. But I don't know, do you want me to talk about that now or when we talked about the script?
We could get into it later when we get into the script. So right now we're getting a brief overview about the characters.
I really liked Ethan Hawke in this movie.
And when he first came in, I thought he completely stole the movie.
He's
great,
really great fucking actor.
He's great in Training Day, which you'll realize.
I'm gonna try and watch that this weekend.
Yes.
But I really like Ethan Hawke a lot in this movie.
And there was a lot of great. What I really liked is that Antoine Fuqua focused a lot of scenes where, if you've seen Training Day, Ethan Hawke and Denzel had a lot of great moments together. And when they showed this, you saw a lot of good moments between Ethan and Denzel, where you see that recognition and the chemistry between them, possibly even on a personal level between the actors. And it read. They did a really good job with that. And Ethan Hawke, they had a lot of good moments to really show his range of acting.
And you know what was kind of cool about that, though? He was paired with that other actor, Young Hun Lee. Who played Billy Rocks, which is a badass name. How cool is that character name? That Billy Rocks?
He fucking rocks.
Yeah, it was cool because those two were partners.
Billy Rocks fought like 5-6 dudes by himself, like bare knuckle boxing or something, and saw it and thought, why are we trying to kill this guy? Like, that's a cool dude. I gotta have a drink with him. Yeah, that's why I like Ethan Hawke. He thinks like that. Yeah, Billy Rocks was so badass. And my opinion, he had the best action sequences.
He did. He really did.
He had. It wasn't just like, oh, here's a guy with cool knives doing things and everybody else has guns. How is this guy surviving? He kept incorporating guns into his usage of fighting. So it was so visually badass to see. And what was cool about that is when you first introduce him, he was having some type of duel with a guy. But what I really liked about this guy, his physical demeanor looked more like a cowboy than anybody else on screen. Yeah. The way he stood, almost like, because you have Freddy Krueger did this too with his glove hand. He said his glove weighed more, so he'd hang it off to his side like a cowboy with a 6-shooter that kind of weighs him down a little bit. He had this stance about him that looked like he looked more like a cowboy than anybody else, just from his physical demeanor. Interesting. I thought that was really cool because he was really good with a gun, but that wasn't his specialty. It was with knives and throwing weapons, which was really cool. And the first standoff they have where he takes off the gun, you think, what is this guy gonna do? And he takes his hairpin, throws it, and kills the guy. What a brilliant use of showing us so much about a character without any dialogue having to be said at all. It's always what they always say, the golden rule of Hollywood when you're writing a screen film is show, don't tell. That's exactly what it was. They showed us how badass he was without having to say it. What other characters do we have? Vincent. Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio. Oh, man. This was a real big surprise to me. Jack Horn. Vincent D'Onofrio plays Jack Horn. He lived in like the mountains, and he was really... He was big and burly. It felt like he could attack a bear and survive. And like, it was so funny the way they introduced him because they had, what was it, the Pheasant Brothers? Yeah. That was so funny, man. They went looking for Vincent D'Onofrio's character to help bring him into the Magnificent Seven, but instead, they found two guys who allegedly killed him.
and they're telling the tale about how they killed him. And then all of a sudden Vincent D'Onofrio comes running and he just kills the guys with axes. It is like a great introduction to his character. But you know what's kind of cool about this when I was watching it? Vincent D'Onofrio is a big, huge guy.
Yeah.
And when you see him, you think he's going to have this big, low, grumbly voice.
But he didn't.
He was up on the higher octave when he talked.
He used his falsetto voice.
He used a little bit of his falsetto voice, and I thought it worked really well. I thought, I wonder if that was a conscious decision of his.
And he had such philosophical beliefs in what he was saying. Like, it was so brilliant. And again, spoiler alert, as we already said, even in his death, and he's staring up into the clouds, and he has like this look of where he's finally seeing the beauty of life for the final time and kind of smiled before he dies. Like, that was such a nice moment.
It was, but I'm torn up about that moment for him.
I know,
too.
but we'll get into that when we talk about our little gripes about it.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
But I really love Vincent D'Onofrio, and a lot of the comedy came from him too.
Oh, yeah.
He was really funny in this.
Yes, and speaking about the comedy, about 3/4 of the movie, before we hit the third act, I thought, you know what, even though there was a lot of action, there seems to be more comedy than there is action. I was beginning to think, I think this is more of a comedy. And then the third hit, and I was like, okay, never mind. This is purely
So they matched themselves. As funny as it was, the action was as good or even greater. Because I thought the action in this movie was unbelievable.
It was.
Because it didn't look like they used any CGI.
I don't think they used any at all.
But I was watching it at the end. I'm like, I don't think they used any CGI in this movie. It felt like everything belonged in camera. All the explosions, all the gun. Of course, they probably had like little bullet flings, like little nicks and stuff like that in the action. That could have been CGI, but nothing in this movie stood out that looked like it was CGI. It felt like everything was done practically.
Okay,
all right.
Let's talk about Vasquez then. Played by Manuel, Garcia, Ruffo.
Out of the Magnificent Seven, he felt the most underused.
Oh, absolutely, because. And I'm going to get into that in part of the gripe. I'll say it really briefly. They didn't really develop his backstory at all, okay? And that's going to go in a little bit about the ending of the movie that we're going to get into. But I thought he was funny. The fact that he had 3 Marias, and they had that whole funny joke. Like, that was 3 Marias.
He had the whole rivalry with Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt looks at him and he's like, another Mexican.
Yeah.
And they kind of had that the white guy Mexican kind of feud.
Yeah.
And they played on that a little bit in the movie with its own redemption at the end in the final battle. But I thought that was really cool. But I feel like that they didn't utilize him too much.
I felt like he was a little underutilized, but he was a really solid character. I liked him. I enjoyed him. I'm glad he was in the movie.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So that's all with him.
Next one, Red Harvest.
Oh, man, this guy was great. Native American with war paint and stuff, and he's just sitting there watching them in the morning when they all wake up. And that's when you find out that he was kicked out of his tribe because he was on a different path than everybody else.
Yeah.
And Denzel Washington is just like, we want to kill white men. Are you with us? And he's like, all right, you guys want to eat some deer? And you just give him the deer.
Gives him like a throat.
We got a new guy. Yeah. We got a new guy here. He's an Injun. He's gonna help us kill plenty of white men. So, and he just became part of their group, which I thought was really cool.
It was cool, but it just kind of seemed kind of thrown in a little bit. Like, okay, I mean, he just randomly walks upon them, offers like a freaking deer throat or kidney or whatever it was, and he shoot it.
It was fast.
Yeah.
But I felt like it wouldn't have taken that much more to give him a little bit more introduction to the group.
That's true. That's a good point.
In that same scene, all they needed was at least one more good character moment between him and somebody else in there, just to solidify why he needs to join them.
Let's talk about Peter Sarsgaard as Bartholomew Bogue.
I love this guy as a villain. He plays a really good villain because he plays like even the way he talks seems like he's mentally unstable. The inflection of his voice seems like he's a little bit crazy when he talks.
Oh, he did. And the cool thing that they did is you have to remember, they only showed him for about 5 to 7, roughly 7 minutes of the opening, and then you didn't see him until about the last hour of the movie. So he had to make that much of a big impression for you to respect him as a villain to last about an hour and a half of the movie, having not seen him and still remember him. And he did such a good job doing that.
Absolutely, man.
And that's all respect for him. He did a fantastic job. And even at the end, he was still such a hateful, resentful guy at the end that he still couldn't pray with Denzel, even when he was looking at death in the face.
Right off the bat, you know this guy is a fucking asshole, and it's a bully fucking revenge movie.
Mm-hmm.
That worked perfectly. You didn't need to see everything. It was like an Oreo cookie. and the middle was just filled with awesome cowboys, and the first part and the bad part was the bad guy and how they defeat the bad guy.
And just a lot of cream filling in the middle. It's just a lot of the humor.
Oreo cookie cowboy cream.
Film Brew.
Peter Sarsgaard, I really like Peter Sarsgaard in this. Even though he's a bad guy, I like him as a bad guy. He kills the main girl's husband, and then you don't see him for the rest of the movie. And even when you do see him again later, he does nothing except sit there and just stare at everybody. Peter Sarsgaard. Peter Sarsgaard.
Problems with the script. So what I'm going to say is there wasn't quite enough backstory to some of the characters, and I say specifically Vasquez, because what I loved about the movie is that at the end of the movie, the people that you thought were gonna live died, and the people that you thought were gonna die lived. Like they had the Mexican and the Native American that
and the
lived,
black guy.
and the black guy that lived, and that was shocking to me that the Mexican guy, I mean, by all means, I love the fact that the Mexican lived. The Mexicans should live in every movie, but he lives. But the reason why I'm saying it's shocking to me is because the movie never established his background. So after this movie ends, what is he going to? Who is his family? What is he going to?
There was no big payoff for him surviving because he was a criminal.
Exactly.
And, he didn't really redeem himself.
No. Now, the Native American, I love the idea that he lived because it's almost like if he moves on and goes off to like other adventures, they kind of created this mystical character that's like, this is another notch on his belt. Here's another adventure that he's seen, kind of like Indiana Jones. Like he went and did this crazy thing and now he's moving on and he's doing like more that's going to go on. Like I love that idea. It's like a traveling narrator almost that he sees. But Vasquez made no sense to me. I mean, they killed off Chris Pratt, which was shocking to me. I thought he was going to live.
He was my favorite death. I thought his death made the most sense and it was the most badass.
All the white guys died. White people are surviving way too much in movies. Like, that's enough that you guys die once in a while. Like, just die a little bit.
Yeah.
Live a little bit of breath for some of us.
I feel like none of the Magnificent Seven should have survived. I felt like everybody should have died in this movie except for the girl who put everything in motion.
But I still think if all of them would have died except even the Native American too, and he just kind of traveled on, that's so badass to me because it's almost like he was sort of the narrator of our movie. To some extent, even though, he wasn't in the beginning.
Because he was the outside of the box perspective.
He was an outside of the box perspective. He kind of came in and it was the warrior that moved on. Because again, remember how he said, my tribe goes, like he kind of went and diverged from where his tribe went. It's kind of the same thing. His tribe left him again. That would have been so poetic.
I have to pee. I need to make a pee-pee. I'll be right back. Let's talk about other problems that we had with the script. What other problems did you have with this movie?
I would say for this movie, even though it was really good, they didn't have any particularly great, unique moments that they had in this movie that stands out that I've never seen in another Western movie. Now, I'm not talking specifically about the characters and the way that the actors portrayed them. I'm talking about from a script standpoint. There wasn't anything unique from a story standpoint that was so unique that I've never seen in another Western movie.
That's true. So was that your biggest gripe with this movie?
That would probably be my biggest gripe, just because I wish I walked away saying, bro, like this scene was like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. Because even though I know Antoine Fuqua didn't want to go super gory with it, he went lighthearted, whereas Quentin Tarantino went super gory with like Django Unchained. Mm-hmm. Django Unchained had so many moments that I've never seen in a Western movie that was like bananas to me. I walked away and I still think about those scenes. This one, I'm thinking about the actors. I'm not saying the script writing, oh man, those writers did a great setup for the scene. No, I'm thinking Chris Pratt was really funny in this. Denzel was great in this. I'm looking at the acting. I'm not looking at the filmmaking that really impressed me with this.
I'll agree with you. I think that there wasn't anything standoutish rather than any other Western that you've ever seen.
What were you most disappointed with?
To be completely honest, I had two big problems. One was with Ethan Hawke's character. He played a sniper during, what was he a sniper during?
The Confederate, they said he was a Confederate.
Was it Civil War?
Yeah, it had to be Civil War.
He was a sniper for the Civil War. And he had killed so many people that all the ghosts of the people who he killed were haunting him. And so he was very reluctant to kill more people, but he was still a sharpshooter. That's what they set up, but they didn't reveal that too much to the audience. They just let us know that Ethan Hawke had a problem using his gun, but it wasn't his aiming issue. They're trying to train the town on how to stand up against this army.
Yeah.
So they had a bunch of people learning to use rifles for the first time on the shooting range, and Ethan Hawke was yelling at them because none of them could hit the targets. And Chris Pratt knew that Ethan Hawke was off his game because he failed to take out a guy on a fucking
horse.
On the horse. And so he's like, he goes up to Ethan Hawke, he gives him a rifle. Why don't you show him how it's done? Ethan Hawke picks up the rifle, and you see him shaky like he doesn't know what he's doing, but then he shoots and he kills. It was almost like Deadshot from Suicide Squad. He hit every single vulnerable part on that target, and he destroyed it. So it's like, what was his problem with killing people? It was the fact that he was being haunted by their ghosts, but they didn't show us that. If you're gonna spend that much time giving a character a fault, and then when it's time to overcome it, they don't show him overcoming it. They just show the result of him coming back.
Yeah.
I felt like that was not poor character development. It was poor character exposition. That had nothing to do with Ethan Hawke. That had nothing to do with his performance. His performance was great. This movie itself made me love Ethan Hawke even more, and I didn't really like him that much.
You gotta watch Training Day.
I will watch Training Day. I
that.
really like Ethan Hawke though now.
Okay, so another thing I will say is if I see that Antoine Fuqua wanted to go with like a more lighthearted comedy, like action, which is great. But if he would have taken the approach like he did with Training Day to this, meaning more of a darker, gritty, gory version of this movie, I think it would have resonated and it could have been so much better, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that the current movie is bad. It was still a good movie. It was very enjoyable. I just think it could have been a deeper movie. It could have had those moments of, oh shit, like that was unique to me if you would have went a little more gory with it. Because you even see at the end, Vasquez, who lives, goes and, he got shot in the arm, and as soon as they're done with the battle, he just rides off with them. And it's like, dude, you got a fucking bullet in your fucking arm. Like, shouldn't it be tended to? You got a fucking bullet in your damn arm.
That dude's Mexican. He doesn't need a hospital. Just like spray some Fabulosa on that. I'll be okay, man.
But my point though, like it just, if you would have emphasized a shot and like you see it, like it's so painful, like it could have, the stakes could have been raised so much higher. You even have the one where Chris Pratt got shot in the side. He's like, oh, I guess I need a new vest. And he's still running around shooting like it never affected him. If it would have been affecting him, the stakes and the danger of the characters of death and life would have been raised higher. And I felt like the payoff could have been a lot more at the ending if they would have told that type of movie.
I thought the action scenes in this were amazing. They were incredibly violent.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton would not like this movie. She would want to take all the guns away from this cowboy.
She doesn't like any movie.
No.
She hates all the movies.
Except for the Manchurian Candidate.
Except for the Manchurian Candidate, and that's what she walks on loop.
This is a Western, so what we should really talk about right now is the cinematography of this movie.
Yes.
So Dan, what did you like about the cinematography?
There was a lot of nice tight shots on the characters, their face, their emotions, a lot of Chris Pratt looking out in the distance, right? So he had a lot of those. The only thing I would harp on, which I know you're going to go off on a tangent about, is that he didn't do any wide shots. Usually,
that was,
yes, usually with like, which is something that, again, we don't want to keep doing comparisons, but Quentin Tarantino did with Django Unchained. You do a lot of wide shots to set the tone of the scene. You show the whole landscape.
They had great locations. I'm not going to lie about
Great
that.
locations.
It felt like they shot on all the canyons. They found the most beautiful canyons. But the things that Westerns were known for were their giant, huge, wide shots. They didn't have those here. They tried to, but it wasn't as effective as the actual old Westerns. That is literally my only gripe about the cinematography, because the cinematography in the rest of the movie was amazing. I needed that classic saloon door opening up and the creaks and everybody stopping to look at the person coming in. We got that. Chris Pratt, half in shadow, half in natural light from the windows. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, that is a Western cowboy shot, which was really cool. That was it for cinematography for me. What about you?
Yeah.
So that sums up the cinematography.
Yeah, there it is.
So let's go right into the way that we judge these movies with our buzz meter, right?
Our buzz meter. How many beers does it take for you to enjoy this movie?
How many for you?
For me, it's like I can't even really say beer, right? Because like they're drinking whiskey the whole time. You just grab a whole bottle of whiskey and you just chug it right out of the bottle.
That's what it was for me. So what would you say your buzz meter was?
A buzz meter was a bottle of fucking Jameson, sharing it with your buddies. Why? Not because the movie was bad, just because the movie was so good and you just want to enjoy this good time.
And so for me, for us, it took 2 whiskeys each. We had 2 whiskeys. Actually, no, we had a beer at the bar before. So we had a beer and then 2 whiskeys.
2 old fashions.
2 old fashions and 2 whiskeys, and that was it. That was our buzz meter. 2 old fashions and 2 whiskeys, and Dan was an entire bottle of Jameson. Not to enjoy the movie,
but to enjoy the movie, but to join the chemistry.
Join the chemistry.
It was to join the chemistry of the characters. Like we were just sitting back having a bottle of Jameson. It was a good time. I had a good time watching it.
So, any final thoughts about this movie, Dan?
Final thoughts. It was really fun. What I would say is definitely go watch the movie. Don't watch it like an asshole. Just enjoy the experience, because if you're expecting a brilliant movie and something you've never seen before, you're going to be disappointed. Just go in there just to enjoy the movie. If you're a fan of Young Guns, if you're a fan of like Western movies, just go in there and enjoy it. But the good thing about this movie is that it's kind of a dumbed down version of a solid script. And I say that in a good way because people that aren't fans of Western are going to enjoy the movie.
I felt like this was a great, awesome Western to watch with your dad.
So like the Magnificent Seven.
Take a drink.
They're magnificent.
Don't drink all of it. Leave some for me. Here's to the Westerns.
What he said.
I'm Kevin Lyons.
Dan and the Sangre.
We are Too High Mcfly Productions. Comments? Give us a fragrance of your emotion. This is the weirdest man hug. I love you. I love you.